Welcome back. Well, for decades, the Heritage Foundation has been an organization dedicated to promoting conservative policies and principles here in our country. My next guest is the senior advisor and spokeswoman for the Heritage Foundation. Welcome to the show, Genevieve Wood. Hello, Ms. Wood. How are you today?
Doing great. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on Real America. We really appreciate it. We are in the home stretch of what I would call probably the most important election of our lifetime. And I'm not talking about the presidential run, but just overall as far as House and Senate and the presidency and this movement of what I've been calling good versus evil. For some reason, we've got Republicans out there on one side of the aisle that are pushing this liberal agenda that would change, to me, the fabric of our nation. The Heritage Foundation has been a very neutral when it comes to politics. I know you don't endorse, but you guys do push conservative principles and values. Do you see this election, and I'm, again, not talking about the presidential, but as a whole, as kind of how I see it?
Absolutely, Dan. Look, this is election. I did a video a couple of weeks ago talking about which America do you choose, and whether the issue is healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's our foreign policy, whether it's what we teach our children in schools and how we talk about this country. It doesn't matter what issue you bring up. There are very different views about what kind of America we want to live in, what kind of America we want to work in, and what kind of America we want to raise our families in. There are two very different worldviews at stake in this election, and you're absolutely right. It may start at the top of the ticket, but it goes all the way down.
You know, something that I find interesting, it used to be, not too long ago, the left would accuse the right and conservatives of being warmongers and always wanting to take our country to war. You have a president who has tried to keep us out of wars for 4 years, who has done 4 major peace deals in the Middle East, which promotes peace then across the land, and I mean the entire world, and yet mainstream media ignores the good work that is done. This president, his administration, has sought out peace. That is something that everyone, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, should be for.
Well, and sought out peace, but also at the same time stood up for America, stood up for America, stood up for American jobs. I mean, and isn't what we always hear people say, carry the big, the big stick, walk quietly, but carry the big stick. Mm-hmm. Look, we've had an administration who very much has said, we care about Americans, and we care about Americans first. We are respectful of the rest of the world. But as Donald Trump has often said, I'm the president of the United States, not the world.
Yep.
And I think that is what we want a president to do, is to look out for American jobs. And you can do that without always going into other people's countries and other people's wars. And I think over the last 4 years, that's what you've seen.
But Genevieve, wait, watch out. Whoa, 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 whoa. The minute you start saying America first and you're a nationalist, then you're a racist. Because that's what the left paints you as. Because God forbid we put our country and our interests of our men and women of this great nation first. Because if we're not globalists, we're racists.
Well, what I always say to folks is, if America's not doing what it should be doing, and if we're not strong, how's that helpful to the rest of the world? A strong America is actually a very good thing for the rest of the country, or for the rest of the world. So look, I don't think we should be apologetic about being Americans. And I think what every American should ask themselves is, what kind of country do I want to live in? What kind of country do I want to see my children and my grandchildren growing up in? And the decisions we make in our elections are going a long way in shaping that. Because, Dan, as you well know, there is hardly an area of public life and private life that the government now does not touch. Right? They tell you what kind of health care you can have. They tell you what you're going to teach your kids in school. They tell you
what
how they're
words you can say.
That's exactly right. And so it really matters then who we put into government office, because they're making a lot of decisions about the country that we live in and what we get to do and what we get to say.
Yeah.
This whole cancel culture thing. If this thing is going to go on steroids. It used to be we could all disagree, right? You could have an opinion, I could have an opinion.
Let's agree to disagree.
But now, no. We have the majority of the media out there, not One America News, and there's a couple of others, but so much of the media is now basically doing its own cancel culture by not covering certain stories, by not interviewing certain people, and not letting certain viewpoints be heard. And that's not going to go back in the box. That's not something that goes away after Election Day. That's a war that we're in.
Yeah. Genevieve, I'm sure your parents taught you. Mine did. It was my grandma that taught me. Whatever happened to sticks and stones? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Whatever happened to that? We just threw that out the window. I got to ask you about this because you just touched on it, on our free speech. And of course, the left then hides behind the social media who says, well, it's a platform. We're allowed to. We can do whatever we want. This is a private company, blah, 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 blah. Has the Heritage Foundation been censored, suppressed, or blocked in some of your posts?
Oh, look, whether it's Google, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, not just being blocked, but the idea we've seen our information not getting out there like it once did in many of these areas. And they all, there's always an excuse. There's always a we'll try better next time. But I think we've come in, and look, as conservatives and as the Heritage Foundation itself, we've been very careful to say we don't want to censor people. We don't want to tell private companies how to run their companies and how to run their platforms. But when you're abusing government laws, and I think we're coming to a place where there's a big question as to whether these social media giants are taking advantage of the platforms they've been given. And we may not need to throw it all out the window, but some serious reforms need to be made. That's something we've got to do, because this election cycle is a case in point of trying to silence certain views because they don't fit the political leanings and beliefs of the people running most of these social media giant companies. That's not free speech. That's what they claim they're all about, but yet they censor the very voices they don't agree with.
Right, and they let propaganda and lies be spread all over for the past few years about our president, the anti-Semitism, all kinds of nasty stuff that you'll see on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. They never censor, and the minute a major, not scandal, cover-up comes out about the Biden family and anything now pro-Trump, just weeks before the election, they step up high gear and just try to cancel it all. Let's hope we can find some, and this is a dirty word for conservatives, but regulation needs to be put upon these social media companies because they are interfering with elections, which is illegal, not to mention the main way most of them use them. We use these right here, which guess what? There is federal regulation for cell phones, and if you're using that to put your platform on, there's laws out there we can go after them for. They're giving me the hard rap. Genevieve, thank you so much for coming on from the Heritage Foundation. We really appreciate your insight. Keep that voice out there for conservative values. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.